design sells, but they're really looking for the result. Have steps in place that you really can use to address and really justify the value of whatever you price. The actual dollars and cents value is far less important than the outcome that you can present to them. What's happening, people? Welcome back to another powerful episode of the Creative Journal Podcast, entry number 51. I am your host, Andy of mmgdesign.net, and I am super stoked to be sharing this episode with you. This episode is extra special because although it is technically solo, it really isn't, because it is a transcript and the audio from my recent lecture with Franklin University Marketing and Communications. I did a guest lecture over Zoom last week on how to help the students kind of maximize their capstone marketing campaign and how to allocate budgets aside for a website, how to increase the conversion on that hypothetical website. And there's just a ton of lessons on design, optimization, business in general, learning some of these guys' careers and how they're all factoring into this capstone project and all the different budget allocations and considerations that go into building a marketing campaign around an effective website. There's a ton of value in this conversation, from website pricing, budget allocation, marketing strategies, the goals of the users on the website, and everything in between. If you're a web designer or you have a website, you're a marketer, and you're looking to get more business and bang out of your website buck, then this is a great episode to listen to. So you guys are not going to want to miss this one. A ton of value in this conversation. If you have any questions about how to price a website, how much of what your priorities should be when you go to a website and the goals it should accomplish for your own business, and you're going to get a lot out of this conversation. So without further ado, one more thing. This week's entry into the Business Owner's Essential Reading Database is a true classic, and it is How to Win Friends and Influence People by the one and only Dale Carnegie. An actionable quote from that this week is, "It isn't what you have or who you are or where you are or what you are doing that makes you happy or unhappy. It is what you think about it." That quote, two others, three of my biggest takeaways, and a quick summary is all includes in this database, along with the link to download it at the cheapest price online. Guys, it's literally a test drive of all the best business books, categorized, links to download, with short hits of summaries, and they're all tailored to fit you at your phase of business. Heading into the second half of 2024, if you want to become a smarter and more well-read business owner, make sure you check this out. That'll be in the first link in the description. Without further ado, entry number 51 of the Creative Journal Podcast. Please welcome the wise, the wonderful, me, plus Franklin University.
My name's Maya. I'm currently a catering sales manager at the Columbus Zoo. I just started a new position, actually, and I'm about to complete my bachelor's in marketing as well, hopefully in the next few weeks for graduating. And I also am definitely interested in getting into digital marketing, social media marketing, and hopefully as I grow with my position, maybe I can kind of delve into that aspect of the Columbus Zoo as well.
Awesome. Cool. That's a great little niche there.
Go ahead. Why don't you introduce yourself, Andy, then?
First of all, I'm really excited to be here. This is kind of my first time doing like a panel like this for a group of students. Graduated spring of last semester from the University of Findlay with degrees in strength and conditioning and marketing. Right after that, I got my first job in an agency here in Marysville. You guys might have heard of them. They're called Rudis. Joined them as a marketing graphic designer. Learned a lot. It's a very fast-paced environment. Spinning up stuff like landing pages, A/B testing, a lot of email software, automation, and as well as some just manual graphic design stuff. 7 months ago from there, got laid off, and then I had always been doing kind of freelance full-time since college, mostly doing traditional graphic design, building websites. Right after going full-time, really ramping that up, making a lot of calls, joining a lot of networking groups, refining services, finding, the people that you want to work with, and just really putting yourself out there. They say it's like the best thing that you can possibly do to learn from someone who's maybe like 1 to 2 steps ahead of you, even if that. So I hope to be that for you guys today.
Yeah, I was thinking about this, and Great Cups is struggling with their website, but some things now that the owners of Great Cups don't know, why don't you share with Andy what target market you came up with? Because clearly they do not know that yet. They don't have a good feel and have never done that research.
So my group's kind of decided on mostly Gen Z millennials just because they're more willing to spend, and also they're more interested in specialty coffee nowadays, iced coffee options or frappuccinos, things like that. And they're not as price sensitive compared to, older generations. So that's where we're placing our focus at right now.
So Andy, I sent you a copy of the current website and you can see it's lacking. So any ideas as far as content on the page and social media that you would recommend for Gen Z?
Yeah, so I think I want to start with, kind of picking apart how you guys landed on it being a Gen Z audience. Is that kind of from the existing sales or from the environment that's within it? What about it is speaking to the Gen Z audience, other than obviously, and you, Maya, you mentioned the price tag, the price sensitivity. Is it anything that's about the environment that goes in? Because I know personally from our generation, a lot of it is just the experience, the branding behind it too. When we talk about stuff like Starbucks and Dunkin', which I know is kind of the adjacent TAM, like target addressable market for you guys, in comparison to like who your competitors are. Defining your target market based on what you want it to be versus like who it's actually speaking to, and then the data behind it. So what about it is kind of making you guys lean in that direction?
We were tasked with observing and physically going to some of the competition, like observing Starbucks and observing a Dunkin'. I went into a couple of different Big B's, but we did that, and then we had a lot of secondary research, just different statistics online, just the different databases that were available to us to kind of get a general feel for what, like any other research that had already been done, obviously. So there's a lot of reference in the Great Cups of Coffee resources that, they make reference to Starbucks as somebody that they're trying to kind of emulate. That's that demographic that a lot of the consumers fell into. So I think that's kind of where our research took us.
What age group would that be? 18 to 30, something like that, I'm guessing?
Yeah, I think it's somewhere around there. I know for my team, we talked a lot about like students going to a cafe to like have some coffee and study, socialize, and also young business people, again, maybe networking or just working with their coffees.
So they had to do two things. They had to come up using primary research and secondary research, come up with a primary target market and a secondary target market. Now, I didn't ask them for the secondary, which it sounds like it might be almost as big as the primary.
I think a lot of that has to do with where the business is located, where there's a little bit more of a residential community, or shopping area.
Did you have a conflict between your primary research and secondary research telling you two different things, or were they pretty well in sync?
I would say mine were pretty in sync as well. I actually did an interview with a Starbucks manager on duty, and a lot of what he said substantiated my secondary research as well. Convenience plays a big part, and just a lot of them are like busy bees on the go, whether it be school or work. They're constantly traveling, so convenience when it comes to ordering options, whether they have a drive-through or online mobile ordering, and then also, like Janet said, with locations, Starbucks is everywhere, so it's very convenient for consumers to get to one because they're on every corner. Consumers are interested in customizations and adding different flavorings or dairy options. And when I was doing research, I saw on Starbucks stories, they have over 170,000 ways to customize drinks. So that's just something that this younger demographic, they don't care to pay the extra price for different syrups and dairy options. It's something that they like, having choices rather than kind of being put in a box with kind of traditional products, if you will.
That's a great point. I mean, ironically, it does very much tend to align with you guys as your age group. I'm big on like biases, especially in marketing. There's a lot of good books. I'm a huge reader. There's a lot of like really good books I've read, especially recently. One of them is called The Art of Thinking Clearly by Rolf DeBelly. And it's like there's so many different types of biases that can come into play because we have this idealized version of what we want it to be.
Looking at the current website, what jumps out at you right now as something that needs to have action?
Building the business based on who's coming in, not not making a business and trying to find your customers, but like you can't be that emotionally invested in like, I really want to make this product, or I really want to make this business a certain thing.
That was a really good point. And I had this conversation with a mentor lately. It's like, if you build like your personal brand around like who you are, great, and it's being authentic, but that doesn't always attract the same people that you want to work with. So whatever business you're starting, if something looks great to you, the marketing, the copy, packaging, anything like that, you're like, oh man, this excites me so much. But who's it actually communicating to on the other end? Because you're building the business to help other people and not, fulfill your own internal desires. Obviously, you want it to be fulfilling and satisfying to do, but sometimes the people that you're selling to aren't the same people that aren't you. They're not like you.
And I think it explains it in the case. The students actually are part of a consulting team. There's 3 consulting teams, and they're part of a consulting team. So they're not part of Great Cups. They're outside of Great Cups, and their job is to make recommendations that's going to help the business increase revenue and decrease expenses. I mean, the same thing that my company does, that's what they're up against. So that's what they're trying to do, increase revenue and decrease expenses. So coming up with ways to increase revenue, obviously there are some things that they could do, but they are not part of Great Cups.
That's a good point. Obviously, there's room for improvement. You want to start when it comes to like user experience, user design, in relation to like effective marketing. You want to start with like what the goal is. If you can look past whatever your tastes are design wise, just focus more on what do we want the user to do, and then design kind of builds and just supporting that. Whatever your design preferences are, tastes, whether it be for colors, fonts, design elements, anything like that. I'll leave that out of the conversation to start. What would be, say, a home run ITC client lands on this website? What does the home run outcome look like? Does it look like a form submission? Does it look like them ordering something online? Does it look like them going off the site to navigate to a map? Does it look like them putting in a contact form? Does it look like them booking a call? Does it look like them leaving a review? How does the website design what is the ideal outcome of someone coming to the site look like for you guys?
I would say probably looking for like their closest location to them. Maybe if we decide to go through with a loyalty program, having them sign up for their loyalty program, maybe even like look at the menu too.
I would say the same as
Okay.
Kelly, and also possibly a conversion. I think we were looking into the possibility of online ordering. So if they could order a drink from our website, that would be great. As well as, looking at the locations nearest to them. And we are looking into implementing a loyalty rewards program. So signing up, filling out, their information, giving their email, birthday, things like that. So really engaging.
For me, like with user experience, I get annoyed pretty quickly with a website if things aren't really easy to find.
And this is industry specific, right? For coffee in general, the majority of your sales aren't going to come through, the website. So hard to have more than 1 or 2 main outcomes that you're really building around and optimizing for. So you guys mentioned a loyalty program and location search. It's really hard to, optimize for more than 1 or 2 very simple outcomes. It's also important to like think about at what stage both of those actions occur at, if that makes sense. So if you're optimizing for like a rewards program, then that means someone has already been there before and they're already a customer. So that means they probably might already be familiar with the menu. So then menu might be less important. And then you kind of factor that into like the hierarchy of whether it's the navigation or where it appears on the page. For a location search, that's more for people that definitely haven't been to a location before. So then menu options might be more important. It can go through the different phases. And that's why I say like a website is always kind of like the centerpiece of your marketing. Everything on social media or any other aspect of marketing, whether it's print, digital, should always kind of support what the main goals on the website are. So it should all be kind of a main funnel to the main thing. And that's why it's kind of a dynamic element. You can change different designs and layouts to support like whatever your main clear outcome is. That's why it's important to start with that and then build around it. So when it comes to design, that's why I really wanted to start with something like that rather than pointing out like, obviously I could just jump in and say like the drop shadows on the letters are very atrocious. And this is a lot more obvious. It's a lot less practical, but what do you guys like to see like in design elements? Because when it comes to design, it's less important, but is still very important because it encourages those outcomes. Holding a Starbucks cup or going to Sweetwater, there's something about, that experience and that journey. Less of it, I mean, even like the stars on the Starbucks app, some of the animations on there, the reminders, like there's all a certain ecosystem that, makes it uniquely what it is. So what's something that comes to mind, maybe brand wise, that, really speaks to you guys and that could kind of lean into as you build great cups of coffee into something similar, I guess?
Yeah, and one of my pet peeves always is there's so many websites now that are not optimized for mobile, because I don't know what the percentage is, but I'm sure that 90% of the people at Starbucks use their mobile and not the website.
Yeah, I know one
Mhm.
pet peeve of mine is when pages are super cluttered. I was just on Amazon. I hated it. I think their website is so overwhelming that there's like a million different options in the menu. My eyes are jumping over everywhere. I just like websites that are clean and easy to navigate, and I'm not like distracted the whole time.
Any other questions for Andy on any of the things that you're thinking about doing and how to approach them?
I did want to get some insight on maybe what you think it would look like cost wise to redesign the website, because I did do some research, but you have that kind of firsthand experience.
Great,
So
great
that
question.
I could also readjust my budget accordingly, because I think I
Yeah,
need to make some updates.
Now, I didn't share this with Andy, but currently last year they spent $100,000 on their website. Clearly it needs work. So maybe, I don't know, what are your thoughts on how much it would cost to actually make it a lot better than it currently is?
Yeah, I love talking about pricing. Yeah, it becomes more and more important as you make this your full-time job. So this has been occupied a lot in my mind space lately. So what I do know is that you sell the outcome and not the inputs. You really work backwards from how much value what a new website would provide and how much value it brings the person in the scenario of the business. So great cups of coffee, how many cups of coffee, how much revenue do they make in a year?
$200 million last year.
You're right. So working back from that, how much of that comes from their website?
We don't know that. We
Okay.
don't have information on
No
that.
idea. No idea, because they really have not.
Tracked it correctly. Yeah.
Right.
Hence,
So step one, that's a very important thing, is to track metrics like that. I'm not saying that your guys saw, obviously it's all hypothetical, but and real outcomes, thinking, okay, like a perfectly designed website, if we're optimizing for the outcomes that we just talked about, if everything's executed perfectly, that's the outcome we're selling. We're not just selling, a redesign of pixels, and the inputs that go into that on our end, whether it's hours is also factored in, software, hosting, the more your inputs, your overhead, you factor that in as well. So you factor in how long it's going to take you, the things that you're outsourcing for, if you have to outsource to a developer, to any type of consultant to do some custom backend. I know when it comes to e-commerce, there's a lot of plugins and there's a lot of integrations that you have to pay for. And that's why, especially when you're doing a web design or a brand design, you have to account for all of this in the beginning and really front load your effort. So it's usually a big risk as far as when you're putting in, if you get an RFP project, you have to really kind of be good at juggling all of these inputs and thinking okay, this is what the end product looks like, and this is what it's going to look like once we got there. And once we get to, a redesigned site, what's the gap between the improvement that it brings them? So if you can accurately quantify, how many more, form submissions, and really make them see okay, this is what it's going to get you. This is what the improvement looks like. You're going to get this much more business from the site. And obviously you can't broadcast a lot of these things in the future, but if you have a really good idea of how the end outcomes that you're building for can bring them more money and bring them more business, because that's all they care about. They don't care about design. I mean, obviously design sells, but they're really looking for the result. Have steps in place that you really can use to address and really justify the value of whatever you price. The actual dollars and cents value is far less important than the outcome that you can present to them.
They have to with the budget, so they've done that. And what did your research say, Maya, as far as what kind of ballpark did you get through your research?
I know I was looking into mobile app creation, and it said for low performing kind of like base, if you will. It could be anywhere from like $15,000 to $40,000 if you're using like an existing kind of design to be based off. And then it said, I think like $2,000 would be like a monthly kind of maintenance you'd be looking at for that.
I would select something mid-level when you have to do it for the budget. Don't pick the high end, don't pick the low end, pick something in
Mid.
because you're doing a budget, but you have no context of how many more customers this is going to bring. I think it will, but right now you don't know that. Any good sources you use, Andy, to kind of get estimates?
Yeah, it's a lot of it's like inspiration on people charging, and that's why it's really important to be transparent about pricing kind of in your industry, building a network of people that do similar things. It's also important to kind of know what the value is for that company, how much sales they've done in the past, how much more that a redesign could bring them, basing it off of that and meeting them where they're at. So I'm big on transparency. I'm big on asking maybe a client like, okay, what is your guys' budget? This is what the value is going to bring you, and making sure that they understand that, but also being transparent that, okay, we have to make our overhead. We have a certain budget allotment that we have to meet, and our incentives are the same, and it's to make the best thing possible, but also taking in the inputs of what other industries are charging. Say, if it's an agency, they have a lot more overhead, they have a lot more developing experience, they have more team members, so they can probably deliver a more premium product, but at the same time, they have, like I said, more overhead. So a lot more goes into funding team members, whereas if you're a more leaner agency or a studio, you can afford to, and I'm not sure how this fits into your guys' project, but just smaller teams tend to move a lot faster, and there's a lot less bloat, and then usually therefore they can bill less, and they don't have a lot of the resources or the professional outcomes. So it's kind of, if you guys are picking a company or something to handle the development of the website, you have to really know okay, what's the budget and what do I value the most? Do I value speed and professionalism, or do I value, the name brand and the professionalism that a bigger agency might bring, and the reduction of risk that could bring too? Because there's a lot of freelancers and small studios that don't deliver great work. A big thing too, when you're picking someone to develop a website and do a marketing plan, is word of mouth, referrals, trustworthiness. That goes a long way in the industry. So getting as much feedback as you can, asking as many people for inputs, and looking at past work in adjacent industries is a big one too, because, and that's what I kind of talked about at the beginning, is that you want to look for someone that has past experience doing similar things, because that's a very good indicator that they'll be able to create a similar outcome for this industry as well. So that's the biggest thing kind of on pricing, and how much budget you can allocate towards a developer or a web design team.
Yeah, one thing you didn't see, I don't think, it was the head count. They currently have 8 on the marketing team. So you have to determine if they can do it internally, or you need to shop it outside. Then of course it's going to have a big impact. So not knowing the capabilities of the current staff of 8, I think you may be looking at getting an agency or someone. So naturally the price is going to go up. So Andy, just for your background, I typically give them the guidelines. They know the current, or what Great Cup spent last year, and including the website. Total amount was $2.3 million. And my guidelines to them is keep that total around the same. Definitely between promotion, advertising, all of the things that are going to go into the budget, you can definitely play around with that and move money around. Here again, it's going to be based on your target market and based on those SMART objectives and strategies that you've already developed. For your presentation and paper, I would pick somebody midway, not the highest, not the lowest, but somebody in the middle, and how much that's going to cost. So the website budget from 100,000 to 200,000, I mean, that might help. So
yeah. And another thing I will say too is that, and obviously I'm very biased, and I mean, you guys are going to be biased on this too if you go into a role where you do marketing and you're the one that's putting in proposals for projects. If you think hiring a inexpensive freelancer is going to save you money. Just wait till seeing, how much more expensive it is to actually try and go with, a budget option. Maybe someone that you've never met online who doesn't have a good portfolio that'll do it for the lowest rate. And I've seen that firsthand. It's very appealing to try and want to save money on the front end. But when it comes to websites and long projects where you have repeated exposure to a developer or someone who's building something custom for you, the budget option is not always the best option, because you get stuck with someone who can't deliver on what you want and they just don't have the skill set. All of a sudden you're months into a project and they just can't deliver, and it's just a really bad situation. You end up having to cut your losses, and starting again from the beginning is a nightmare. So that's a big risk with projects like this, that's why word of mouth and referrals and social proof is so important. Because that's just a nightmare situation when you start with someone and they either become unreliable or they just don't have the skill set that they initially promised. So that's why it's always good to play it safe. Like I said, I'm biased, but index in the beginning for someone who you're very confident in, that communicates very well, that has a portfolio that's similar and has validated their effectiveness in accomplishing the goals that you want to be on.
Yeah, this not only goes for web development or marketing in general, it goes to every business. That's one of the reasons I belong to a business networking organization, because you come in contact with people that you know, like, and trust. Those are the people that you're going to use. And yeah, picking somebody that's going to take your money and probably not deliver anything, yeah, you want to stay away from that. Picking someone that's actually can follow through and actually do the work.
Right, exactly. It's a big reason I showed up for you tonight, Bob.
Yeah.
So I don't have to see you again next Tuesday. So
yeah, we see each other every Tuesday. So Kelly or Janet, any other questions that you have for Andy?
Yeah, I have one question related to the project, and then I have one question kind of not related to it. So I'll start with the one related to the project. Based on the website, do you know like roughly how long it would take someone to work on that? Like, would it be unrealistic to say 2 months, 3 months, maybe?
I'm a firm believer, and this is a really good topic. I'm glad you brought this up. I am the biggest advocate for not billing based on your time, because what you'll see is that as you get better at what you do, if you start billing for your time, like, you are just penalizing yourself for being good at what you do. A good developer might say, like, well, I can get this project done in 2 months, and it's going to only take me this amount of working hours. If you're working with a developer, you're trying to start a project, and they bill by the hour, that could be a huge red flag, especially if they're a beginner. Because if they're not good at what they do, they're just going to take way longer, and then you're going to be footing the bill for that. For a website like this, I would never, there would be a big red flag if someone told me it was going to take that long. Especially with, the modern tools out there, like, there's rush rates. A lot of agencies have, like, they call it sprints, so design sprints. Like, they'll collaborate with you very closely and they can allocate kind of all their resources to getting a project done very quickly. If you're a freelancer, it's always good to say budget your time, and I always say, like, under promise, over deliver. So I would always factor in like 25 to 50% more time than I would say to build a site. And that's why, front loading on the proposal, I mean, just investing your time into, like, okay, actually accounting for everything that can go wrong, because, Murphy's Law, everything that goes wrong, can't go wrong is going to go wrong. If you factor in all of that and then think, like, okay, this is the worst case scenario. I get sick. My parents go to the hospital. I crash my car on the way home. My Wi-Fi goes out, my heating goes out, like, all this stuff happens, and I can still meet this deadline. That's what you quote for. And also, that's why a big part that kind of goes back is to, like, getting as many quotes as possible. So if one agency says, like, we can get this done in 3 months, and someone else says we can get this done in 2 weeks, then okay, wow. So, like, okay, that's a big difference. So kind of ask them what their process is. How did you arrive on that time frame? And then just kind of picking apart the pieces and seeing, like, what the different process look like. Because if an agency is good at what they do, they can be very clear on communicating what their process looks like, how collaborative it is, how often we're gonna touch in. Are we gonna have calls every week? What's gonna be happening on those calls? If they're asking a lot of questions in the beginning, that's a very good sign. And you feel like you're giving them a lot to work with, that's a very good sign. I always say, like, the more the better as far as what you have to work with. And if they're getting a lot of stuff from you in the beginning, then that puts them in a better position to be able to deliver faster. because what you'll find is that a lot of projects get delayed because of not so much the designer or the developer or the agency that's fulfilling, but a lot of times it's waiting for whether it's assets or copy or permission from the people that are building the site, the client. So that's why good communication is really important, because that's what can delay projects too. But personally, for a site like this, obviously e-commerce can take, a different amount of time. These move a lot quicker nowadays, like with no matter what e-commerce platform you're using, whether it's Shopify or OpenCart is one of these more modern tools, you can build these in a lot faster, and most agencies could probably get something like this done in no more than a few weeks, especially if they're competent and good at what they do, based on the site I'm looking at. So take that with a grain of salt too. One thing that you quote for as well when you're doing e-commerce is the amount of products and the amount of past orders. So I had to do an e-commerce transfer recently. That's the one thing that you never want to have to do, and that's why you have to really index your resources in the beginning is an e-commerce transfer. Because if you want to transfer all the data to a new e-commerce provider, they take into account how many orders you had in the past and all the data from those orders, and that's a very hefty bill, because you're paying per data transaction, per data field, that whether it's product type, price, like description, all these different things. It's like when you pick a developer and you pick a marketing agency, like view it as like you're getting married to them. So that's why that's why communication is very important, that they sell themselves very well, and they're not just trying to get to yes in the beginning. That makes sense. So they're kind of challenging your opinions. They're not just saying things that to make you agree with them, that they're challenging some of your inputs, and then they're not always saying things that sound good, if that makes sense. So they're not like saying, oh yeah, we can get this done faster, or oh yeah, it's going to be ideal, it's going to move very smoothly, because that's just not the reality. So anytime someone promises a lot in the beginning, really take that with a grain of salt, because projects never go smoothly, projects do go smoothly. Projects never go perfectly. The biggest part of like determining how long something takes is getting multiple quotes and sources and kind of averaging them out, I would say. And then however well that they elaborate their process and communicate, that's just going to make it go all the more better and quicker and smoother. But
You had another question, Kelly?
I was just wondering, I'm interested in graphic design and like user experience and all that stuff. Is there a place that I should start to learn about that? Because I'm finishing up my bachelor's in marketing. I don't want to go get another bachelor's. Like, do you have any recommendations on where to start learning more about graphic design?
Yes, there's kind of two answers to this too, and like take with a grain of salt. I'm not an expert. I'm learning every day, my friend. So if you want the like most practical, useful knowledge, go to businesses and say, I will do design for you and I will create a case study. And don't even factor in money. If they offer to pay you, that's great. But build case studies for real businesses and get results for them. And whether it's in design or marketing, whether it's in any aspect, I know you said graphic design. Yeah, just say like, I'll redesign your logo, I'll build some of your assets, and I'll do it up front, be transparent with them. Say, I'm doing this for my portfolio. I'm trying to get better at what I do. I think you're going to get a lot of value out of this, and I want to do something good for you and how good I am. And that's the best way to, get started from a business standpoint. From a knowledge standpoint, like I've taken a ton of courses, and one thing and there's a lot of good resources I can send to you for courses or, YouTube channels and so forth. A lot of them are free, and there's a lot of good stuff out there. So the more the better on that end. The one thing I would caution you against is that, like I said, very much like going through this myself too. So I'm not trying to phrase myself as an expert by any means, but there's a certain satisfaction you get out of learning that discourages you from like doing. If that makes sense. So it's really comfortable to spend time learning, taking more classes, and learning is always good. Please don't misconstrue this to mean that, but learning is very comfortable because it's not real stakes. And that's why I recommended like going to a business and getting like some hard knocks education there. Because if they don't like it, they're going to tell you. And sometimes that's good to hear. There's real outcomes. And that feedback can be a lot more negative, but it's going to be a lot more beneficial too. That's my only caution against taking courses, is that you can get into this cycle of just like, okay, you can justify continuing to learn. And it's like when you take that first step for real and then starting to make money from it and making a career, get projects under your belt because even if you do a project for free for a real business, it will most likely lead to referrals. If you like what I do, refer me to other businesses. And that's why it's a good idea to kind of index for people that can refer you to adjacent industries. So go to a business that you want to do work for, that really excites you, that fires you up, and say like, I love what you're doing with your business. I want to do this for free. And if they say no, that's okay. But I would really, really get out of your comfort zone and like approach working with businesses and not be afraid to put yourself out there, especially if it's something you want to do long term. It's something I deal with every day. It's very uncomfortable to put yourself out there, but I am all for getting practical business knowledge, sharing what you do, and being ruthlessly passionate about it, because it's easy to hide behind doors and to build and work on your own website, work on your portfolio, take these courses, get these certifications. And there's nothing wrong with that. That's investing in yourself is big and it's good. But if you're not getting out there and doing it, it's like, that's the difference. That's the difference between people that, do it for the love of it and the people that can make money off of it and make it a sustainable career. Is the people that, take it to other businesses and add value to them that way. So I recommend doing that as soon as possible.
Ollie, one thing I was going to say, you're going to get some things you're doing for free now as you're developing strategic plan for Great Cups of Coffee, whether you're designing a logo, designing the website, you have some opportunities right here to practice or have you done some before?
I've done a little bit, 2 websites that I have contracts with, but I haven't done like their logo. They already have their branding done. But I did create a mock logo for Great Cups. It's not like the best. I don't know how to use Adobe or anything yet, but it was just fun to put together.
Nice. Yeah. What are some other projects you guys are doing? I want to hear about what's got you guys excited.
Well, if it's marketing related, then I have my sister's skydiving business that I'm working on, and I have my dance instructors business that I'm working on. They both have different needs, but my sister's skydiving business the website is like from 1980. Like it's really weird. And then the dance instructor, he doesn't have any marketing, and I don't care that he doesn't really have a budget. Honestly, it's just for the experience. He just wants to do whatever he can to try to promote his business, and I'm really interested in just spitballing with him and seeing what works and testing ideas out.
That's what it's all about. I love that.
Anybody else working on projects?
The one website I'm doing is pretty cool. It's a new company I met through my full-time job, actually. So it's like outside work from that, and it's a new company. So Janet, like you said, a lot of spitballing, me and her just brainstorming, and she got a really big state contract. So she's very willing to say, try it. And if I don't like it, we'll pay you to do it again, and we'll mess around with it and play with it. So it's been a lot of fun.
Okay,
Nice.
so you have some opportunities now.
Yeah, it's been fun.
Thank you, Andy.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it a lot.
I was really excited to do this, and this is my first time doing something like this, so I hope I added some kind of value to your guys' night. And one last thing I want to say too is post about your work. Get it out there. Get over that imposter syndrome as fast as you can and do it every single day. Be enthusiastic when you're talking about your work, your projects, because that is the biggest thing that people are looking for. Is if you're excited about what you do and that comes across, whether it's in your meetings or in your social content, or whether it's just meeting with clients or in general life, dude, like people love enthusiastic people. So I encourage you guys to just be proud of what you do and have fun doing it, because, we're not here forever. So thank you guys, and connect with me on LinkedIn. I hope to stay in touch.
Like they say, if you love what you do, you never work a day in your life. So thank you, Andy. Appreciate it a lot.
Exactly. Have a good night, guys.